Hey guys, this is Tauna, and today we're going to be talking about the top 10 cards from OTJ at the moment, or at least, the most valuable cards or the ones that are seeing the most play and stuff, because I think personally, I like talking about, the cards that are going well, and you guys like, hearing about cards and stuff like that. And OTJ honestly is an absolute fire set. I absolutely love this set. Now, I'm going to be talking about just from the base game. I'm not going to be talking about, the BIG or the OTP or OTC or, ABCs or anything like that. We're talking purely base set. So when you open up a pack, this is what you're going to potentially be getting. The nice thing about this set is that there's even some like rares that are kind of going insanely well, not just mythics or anything like that. There's actually one of the top three is a rare, which is pretty crazy. So first up in number 10, we've got the Railway Brawler. So this card is honestly pretty bonkers. Now, why do I say that? Now, obviously, this is the prices at the moment and stuff like that and how they're going at the moment. But, Railway Brawler, I think, is one that's going to potentially be around for quite a little bit. So what does it do? Essentially, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you're going to double its power, but not like just double its power for that turn or anything like that. You're putting that many +1/+1 counters on it, which is pretty crazy, if not for also the fact that when it's got plot, you can plot it for 4, and then you can play it on a future turn as a sorcery. So say, for example, turn 4 or turn 3 or whenever you manage to kind of ramp up to it, you plot this, and then in the future, whenever you have kind of mana built up and you're going to play, let's say, for example, Hydras, and I think that Hydras is, a perfect area for this, is you play this, then you play your Hydra. There's nothing that anyone can really do unless they go and either counter this or counter your Hydra, to completely kind of wipe it out, because you're going to be able to play both of them on the future turn, because when you plot something on a future turn, you're playing it without paying for mana, which is, it's pretty crazy by itself. But when you combine it with the fact that, Hydras, as I said, just big green stompy, you've got so many great cards that you can potentially play with that. All right, next up in number 9, we've got Satoro the Infiltrator, and I probably butchered that name, and I apologize. He honestly, I'm seeing him being brewed for CEDH, but overall, he's just a really, really nice card. So he's got Menace. He only costs 2 as well, by the way. And the fact that he's a ninja, so you've got like the ninjutsu stuff that you can potentially do with him. And his ability works so well with ninjutsu stuff. Whenever him or another one or more other non-token creatures enter the battlefield under your control, if you paid no mana for them, or they weren't cast, then you get to draw a card. So that's stuff like plot, that's stuff like discover or cascade or ninjutsu. You get to draw a card. It's not limited to once per turn or anything like that either. So you get to draw a lot of cards, as well as just being a decent card, especially having Menace. He's going to potentially stick around for a bit. You can do some really, really bonkers stuff with him. Next up in number 8, we've got Giza the Hellraiser. Now, originally when she came out, I was a bit about her because of the fact that, it can only trigger once each turn. However, this doesn't necessarily need to just trigger on your turn. If you've got one of the multiple different ways to be able to trigger any crimes on enemy turn, say for example, like Altar of Dementia, you can Altar of Dementia, sack one of the blue zombies, and then bring out another one. Because why not? So you can really easily flood the board with her with a whole bunch of skeletons. With a whole bunch of zombies that are 2/2s. They're blue-black. They're rogues as well, so they get any outlaw synergies that you might happen to have in your deck for whatever reason, as well as getting the +1 and the menace there. She's also got ward 2 and pay 2 life, so she's a little bit harder to remove too. Now she's not necessarily going to be a CEDH card or anything like that, but in any other format or just normal EDH, she's going to be a decent card to kind of run alongside her. There's so many cards that are about, things dying or, whenever you sack something or something like that. So you can do lots of really interesting things with her to potentially, proc these crimes and then flood the board with a whole bunch of zombies that you can potentially buff up with different things. All right, next up, we've got the new Jace Awakened. So he's going to cost 2, and then you get to basically draw a card and discard a card, or you get to exile something. Now, the interesting thing about exiling here is that it's anything with mana value 3 or less becomes plotted. So any of those, suspend cards that, hey, they're going to have a whole bunch of time counters on them, and they get suspended, but they've got really low mana value, or, the mana value is typically 0 because, they don't have a mana value because they're purely to be played as suspend, you can suspend those. you can plot those. So you can plot really interesting stuff with this, kind of cheat some stuff out. A few people are saying that, you know, if you've got like Leyline of Anticipation, you can actually play Leyline of Anticipation on like your enemy's second turn, right? Because this is during your first, second, or third turns of the game. So you should technically be able to cast this on an enemy's second turn or an enemy's third turn. You can cast this pretty early on with that, which is really nice. You obviously have to get the ley line out first, but, you know, you've got that option there as well. Overall, you know, just having the option of drawing cards and then discarding cards is really nice. You know, this here is easily kind of cheatable, as well as, you know, because he's the mythic, is a bit rarer to get as well. His -6 isn't really a game changer. Like, that's just copy something. But, you know, you mostly want to be able to kind of just keep plussing him up here with both of these really, really interesting abilities there. Next, in number 6, we've got Gold Vein Hydra. So, first of all, it's got Vigilance, Tramps, and Haste. It's an X card. There are so many really interesting decks built around X cards, like the Magus from the Tyrannid deck, for example. Enters with X +1/+1s on it. If you combo that with like Railway Brawler, you're going to double those up. And then when it dies, you get to create a lot of treasures. Now, as again, if you combo that with like a Railway Brawler or something along those lines, then that's going to be a lot of treasures. Unfortunately, they do enter tapped, but given how many different ways there are to be able to cheat cards, you know, to be able to have more +1/+1s on it, or just buff it up, given that it's also created equal to its power, not equal to, you know, any of those other things that are like, you know, equal to however many +1/+1s it's got on it or anything like that. If you do like a temporary buff on it or something, then you could do some really great ways to be able to get a whole bunch of tapped treasures here, as well as get a lot of +1/+1s. Now, this is again a mythic, so of course it's going to be a rarer. Number 5, we've got the Final Showdown. So this is, I believe, a dress down in combination with you giving something indestructible, and then you get to destroy all creatures. So the modal cards are just really interesting to me. I made a video previously about how much I love the modal cards and the spree cards from OTJ, but having the option of, one, making it so that you destroy all creatures, or you get to lose all abilities for all creatures, or you get to, you know, choose a creature you control and give it indestructible. There are just so many different ways to be able to use this card that it's going to be so versatile. It's going to be around for a while, in my opinion, just because of how versatile it is. Again, unfortunately, it's a mythic, so it's going to be rarer, so obviously that's probably one of the reasons why it's more valuable here as well, but it is an incredibly strong card in my opinion too. Number 4, we've got Bristle Bill, Spine Sower. So not only when you landfall, you get to pull a +1/+1 onto it, not only that, but also, onto a target creature, so you don't even need to target him with it. Not just that, for 2, you get to cast him. That's pretty cheap, as well as the fact that for 5 in green, right? That's like turn 2 for green. You get to double the number of +1/+1s on each creature you control. Now, if that was double it on one creature you control, it would be a bit meh, but double it on each creature you control is crazy. You get to double all your +1/+1s on all of your creatures, which is really, really nice. All right. Number 3 here, we've got Slick Shot Show Off. Now, I believe that he's getting seen in like so many different formats. Like, you know, you're looking at like modern and standard, and basically everywhere he's getting shown up. He's going to be great in EDH as well. Not as great in EDH, but when you can run like, you know, 4 of this, as well as plot it for the future, you know, when you can kind of, you know, plot it and then bring them in. They've got haste as well for some goddamn reason. So you just plot it, right? You plot, you know, 4 of them out. And then you bring in like, you know, 3 different cards into your hand, and then all of a sudden you're playing, you know, 3 different spells that you can cast. You bring all those in, then you cast all of those, and boom, you're just going to, you know, completely destroy. In like Tema decks, I believe it is Tema, I can't pronounce that word. I think it's Tema. You're going to be running some really great kind of, you know, cheap spells with green and blue. You know, this is just going to be really, really great. He's just a really crazy card. Now, the interesting thing here is that he's a rare. This is the 3rd most expensive card of the set, and honestly, one of the strongest cards of the set. And again, he is a rare. It is really bonkers. All right, number 2, we've got Terror of the Peaks. Now, I'm not going to go too much into Terror of the Peaks. It is an old card that got reprinted, redesigned as a scorpion dinosaur, like, you know, the scorpion dinosaurs from the OTJ. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the scorpion tag, but, you know, it's just a reprint, so yeah. But you know, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, it's going to deal damage. This is interesting as well, because I didn't think about this until just then. With plot being a mechanic, you could potentially play Terror of the Peaks, then plot in your slingshot show-offs. It's going to deal, unfortunately, you know, only 1 damage for each, but you could plot in, say, for example, Railway Brawler. No one's going to legally stop you from doing that, so you can do some really interesting stuff with that. And then the number 1 card is the Tiny Bones, the Pickpocket. He's getting seen in a whole bunch of different decks. I believe there's like 5-color Legends decks that are being shown around and stuff like that. In like, you know, I believe it's standard and stuff. You know, not just that, but in EDH, he's going to be a strong card. My friend the other day was like talking about his deck for the Hydra deck, and I was like, hey, you could potentially put this card in there. It's a level 1, you know, it's a 1/1 for 1 with Death Touch, which is already great. You know, with the Hydra, you make it invulnerable and stuff, so he's got, indestructible, so he's just going to be able to block stuff constantly. There's lots of really interesting ways you could potentially use Tiny Bones, not just in, you know, thieving decks or anything like that. You don't necessarily need to rely on thieving decks, but for, like, you know, Commander and stuff, he's going to be great for thieving decks. But, you know, even outside of that, he's just a really solid, like, you know, solid 1-drop. You know, potentially turn 2, you can go in, you could potentially steal something. Unfortunately, because of the fact that it does need to be a permanent card, you're kind of relying on something like, you know, them having milled something or something else having died, like an actual permanent. But because it's just a non-land permanent, you could potentially steal, you know, a whole bunch of different stuff, right? Like, say for example, they're like, you know, Commander got removed or something like that. You could, and they put it in the graveyard for whatever reason, you could steal that. Say for example, you know, someone's wiped out, you know, their 2-drop or something like that, you can potentially steal that, you know, an enchantment, an artifact, you know, there's just so many different things you can potentially steal with Tiny Bones. But even then, you know, just a solid 1-drop, 1/1 Death Touch. I'm not going to, you know, even if he didn't have this, he would still be decent. Not amazing, but still decent, right? I don't know, that's just my opinion. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think, what cards you've been enjoying from OTJ. I hope you guys had a wonderful day, and goodbye.